Good evening. My name is Phil Schomber. I'm the adult programmer here at Hedberg. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Kelly Bedessem. I'm sorry. Kelly is the City of Janesville Housing Director, and she's here to talk a little bit about the state of affordable housing in Janesville and some of the resources that are available for those who are looking for affordable housing. But before we begin, I do want to hand it over to Mary Bulow from the League of Women Voters, which is co-sponsoring tonight's program.
Thank you, Phil. I'm Mary Bulow with the Janesville League of Women Voters. And the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages active and informed participation in government. League members study a wide variety of issues to see where we might promote better policies and outcomes in our community. Affordable housing is one of those issues. During this program, we hope to learn what resources are available now and what options there are for improving access to housing here in Janesville. And we do want to extend our thanks to our partners, the Hedberg Public Library, and to Kelly Bedessem for presenting tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody for showing up. I was afraid there was going to be no one here, so it's nice to see faces, or half faces at any rate. So my name is Kelly Bedessem. I'm the Housing Services Director for the City of Janesville. I'm a longtime Janesville resident. I was born and raised here. I did a little bit of time in Colorado and a short year and a half in Hawaii, and then came back to Janesville. I've been with the City of Janesville for 20 years. I started my career with the city as a property maintenance inspector. So I was out in the field looking at trash and debris, junk cars, things like that. I was then promoted to housing inspector. So I went in on complaints for tenants when they had challenges with their landlords and the quality of their housing. After that, I moved into our building services division. So I'm a building inspector by trade. I have done plan review for both residential and commercial buildings. And then I came back to kind of my roots and went back into the housing division. So my housing background, my dad was a builder in town. So if anyone was from way back in the day, my dad was a builder for a short period of time before his passing. And then my mother has been in mortgage lending and real estate for her entire career. So my roots have been in housing in one way, shape, or form. I went to the University of Colorado. My bachelor's degree is in sociology. So housing services at the City of Janesville is part of the Neighborhood and Community Services Department. So we're a division within that department. Also in that department is Recreational Division and the Janesville Transit System. What we do in housing is multiple different programs. So and we'll get into each one of those a little bit of depth later. Rental assistance is one of our primary roles in our housing services division. We serve as the housing authority for the City of Janesville. We also work with state and federal grants. Two that are the most commonly referred to is CDBG, or the Community Development Block Grant, as well as the Home Investment Partnership Program. We also have property maintenance. That's what I talked about, that I had started initially as that role when I first started at the city. And then we also have a vacant building program. And lastly, affordable housing development. So what is affordable housing? Is it Section 8? Is it HUD? Is it tax credit? Maybe all of those, maybe none of those. So HUD defines housing, or affordable housing, as housing in which the occupant is paying no greater than 30% of their gross income for their housing, including utilities. Keeping that housing cost under the 30% allows you to quite frankly, pay the rest of your bills. Once we see housing levels rise above that, then it makes it very difficult to pay for things like groceries and car payments and insurance. So who needs affordable housing? All of us. All of us should spend about 30% or less of our gross income in housing on a monthly basis. Even with higher incomes, mortgage lenders want those clients to stay about 40% of their income, even if those higher income brackets. Interrupt me if you guys have any questions at all. So affordability, so 30% of your income or 40% of your income is obviously going to be the most challenging for those at the lowest income levels. So those paying over 30% of their gross income are considered rent burdened or cost burdened, housing burdened. And those paying over 50% are considered severely cost burdened. So if you look at this chart here, this is a state of Wisconsin. So some of the data that I will provide you tonight is state of Wisconsin because it's robust, it's out there, people have done the research. A few pieces of data will be Rock County data, and then a few will be City of Janesville specific. So this one is a cost burden in Wisconsin. So of our extremely low income population here in the state of Wisconsin, 86% of those are considered cost burdened, and 65% are considered severely cost burdened. So if you're paying greater than 50% of your income just to live, that doesn't leave a whole lot, especially when you're at a lower income. This is another Wisconsin housing fact. So 24% of households that are extremely low income, the researchers believe that we're losing about 120,000 units we need 120,000 affordable units in the state of Wisconsin. That means 120,000 households are not able to be housed affordably. Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, Kelly, can you give us an idea of what extremely low income is?
So in Rock County, so we use our income guidelines are based on Rock County data that's provided to us by HUD. So if you're looking at, for example, a family of 4 here in Rock County, that family of 4, extremely low, would be making $26,500 or less. What we would consider still a low income and would qualify for most of our programs would be up to $36,500. I do have some handouts with that data set on it, just in case if anybody wanted to have it and keep it. So average Social Security benefits in Wisconsin, average Social Security benefit for someone who is age 65 or greater is $496 a month, or $5,900 annually. So clearly that makes those folks extremely low income. So if you take that 30% of $496 a month, that's $148 to live a month. And that's supposed to cover both your rent and your utilities. The average Social Security disability benefit is a little higher at $592. Again, extremely low income. 30% of that income is $177 a month. I can guarantee you I can't find you an apartment for $177 a month, but that also covers utilities. So fair market rents is a determination that HUD makes. So they determine this fair market rent annually, and it's based on the area. So very similar to the Rock County statistics for income is the Rock County statistics for rent and what HUD considers fair market rent. So that data that they determine fair market rent is based on some pretty old data in the grand scheme of things. It's based on the 2015 to 2019 American Community Survey data, and then it's adjusted by the Consumer Price Index, but that's still dated because it's the change from 2019 to 2020. So we're always behind with regard to what HUD considers fair rent. So fair market rent in the city of Janesville, per HUD's guidelines, a one bedroom is $721. That again is intended to include rent and utilities. A two bedroom is $950, and a three bedroom is $1,226. These numbers have probably gone up, I would say, for the last 6 or 8 years. I have not seen them go down annually. But the changes are really small. The changes may be $6 a year, $12 a year.
I got a question. Who's the idiots that make these prices up? And how do they get away with that?
It's HUD, it's Housing and Urban Development, so it's the federal government. We would love to be able to fight those numbers, but it's just not a possibility for us. We know they're not realistic.
What, is this like across the nation, or is there a fair market rent for every area?
There is a fair market rent for every area. This is for Janesville, well, it's for Rock County specific. And HUD doesn't break it down any further, so it's all of Rock
There isn't
County.
even any good paying jobs around anymore to even consider something at that level. When GM and them were going years ago, there was nothing like this. There was nothing where you paid. You could get a two-story house for $400 a month with all your utilities that you could rent.
If you'll just let me continue, I'll get into some of that. So this slide may be a little bit hard to read, but I can certainly send it out if anyone needs it. So to the point here of the gentleman, rent affordability in Wisconsin is a challenge. Absolutely, 100% is a challenge, and we would never argue that. So in the state of Wisconsin, on average, in order to afford a two-bedroom at fair market rent, which we also don't believe necessarily is reflective of the rent that we're seeing out there, a household has to work 99 hours at minimum wage in order to afford a fair market rent apartment. One bedroom is 79 hours. So that's 2.5 full-time jobs if you want a two-bedroom apartment at minimum wage. Or 2 full-time jobs for a one-bedroom apartment. So this pie chart, I think, is interesting because all too often I hear, well, people just need to go get a job. Well, 35% of those who are considered extremely low-income households are in the labor force. They're actually working. Sorry, I don't have a colored copy. So 21% are disabled, and 29% are seniors. So you have workforce, you have seniors, and you have disabled populations. That's what makes up our low-income populations in the state of Wisconsin. It's not people who don't want to work. It's people who are working. It's people who are disabled. It's people who are elderly. So this is what we have been dealing with in the city of Janesville since 2016. So if you look, it's hard to read on here, but this is January of 2016. This is August of 2020 here. So our rent has gone exponentially higher in this community. What we could get in an apartment for $550, now the average price is $1,113. So affordability in Janesville. So full-time at minimum wage at $7.25 an hour, which is what our minimum wage is here. That's $377 at that 30% to pay for rent and utilities. Similar to the elderly, disabled, the Social Security, I can't find you a unit for $377. So, you know, I hear oftentimes, well, I can go get a job for $15 an hour right now. Everybody's hiring. So full-time at $15 an hour it would allow you $780 a month for rent and utilities. it's a challenge to find an apartment right now for $780, especially if you start to add utilities in. That, if you go back to that last slide, the average one bedroom is $1,113 a month. In order to afford that at 30% of your income, you need to make $21.40 an hour. I don't know a lot of entry-level jobs that are $21.40 an hour. So this is why we have a challenge here in Janesville. What we do at the City of Janesville, it's not going to solve all the problems. Absolutely not. You know, we do our best with. Okay, can you please? Thank you, sir. So we have a rent assistance program, commonly referred to as Section 8. It's a housing choice voucher program. I will get into each one of these in detail in just a minute, but we have the rent assistance program, Section 8 program. We also have a down payment and closing cost assistance program. We have homeowner rehabilitation. We have a lead grant program, and we have affordable housing development. So our rent assistance program. So rent assistance is a federal program. It's designed to assist with rent payments. It's not designed to pay rent payments in their entirety. Our participants, there we go. Our participants pay 30% of their own gross income towards their rent. So our average, throughout our entire program, our participants pay about $310 towards their rent every single month, and then we pick up the rest of that. So the City of Janesville administers that program on behalf of the federal government. We're considered the public housing authority in the City of Janesville. We don't own or operate any of our own units, so what we have is a housing choice voucher program. 70% of our participants are 30% or below county median income. So that was that extremely low income. Household of 4 is below $26,500. 25% of our clients are at that very low income level. So that's 50% of county median income, or $36,500. All of our clients are screened for drug use, drug sales, and violent crime. We ask landlords to screen for whatever their normal screening criteria is, but we don't allow folks onto the program who have had a violent crime charge, drug crime charge within the last 3 years. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program can be used anywhere in our community. Like I said, we don't own or operate any of our own units, and so what we ask is that our clients find their own housing that's suitable housing for them. As long as the landlord accepts that housing, we can use the Housing Choice Voucher Program with a couple caveats. So all of the units, when someone would find a unit, is inspected for housing quality standards. That's a federal guideline for housing quality standards. It's somewhat similar to our local ordinances. There are some little nuances of difference, but not a lot. The units are inspected at initial move-in, and then once again, minimally every 2 years. If we get in there and everything is great and it passes right away, we don't go back the next year, we let it go for a couple of years. Gives our clients a little bit more privacy, as well as the landlords. If they're doing their job, there's no reason for us to go in. So clients must comply with a set of rules set out in our Statement of Family Responsibility. So we run their backgrounds initially. We run them every time they do an annual. We want to make sure that they're complying. If landlords are having issues with our clients, we want to know that so that we can have that conversation. Right now, we're currently assisting about 543 households. That changes on a day-to-day basis, but about 543, that's the number, the magic number that HUD has provided us. 27% of our households on our program are elderly and or disabled. 35 are female heads of household, and 73% of our households have children in them. We also have some special voucher programs. We have a VASH program. So that is a veterans program. This is designed to assist veterans who are homeless. Those veterans usually go through either Rockford or Madison. We don't have our own VASH program at this time, but we support those other two programs, and we do pay for rent here in Janesville for those two programs. It sounds like HUD may open that program up again, and we will apply for those vouchers ourselves. One of the other relatively, I think, exciting voucher programs that we have that we just started doing recently, it's brand new to HUD, brand new to Wisconsin, and Janesville was the first community to do the foster youth vouchers. So foster youth to independence vouchers, they're a little different. They terminate in 3 years. So young adults who are moving and transitioning away from foster care are given kind of a 3-year safety net. We participate with the county and social service agencies that are required to do some wraparound care for these individuals. So they bypass our waiting list, they come right onto our program, and we're able to assist those youth. As of right now, and don't quote me, but I think we have 7 on our program. So we've been able, in the last several months, to safely house 7 young adults who are transitioning out of the foster care program. And we have a homeownership program coming soon. We've been working on this program. It will allow for individuals who are low income to receive some services, receive some homeowner counseling, and they will be able to use their rental assistance or their Section 8 voucher for a mortgage payment. It's taken some time to work together with some banks to make sure that they will use our voucher as income source, otherwise they can't make a mortgage work. But hopefully very soon we'll have some home ownership within our rental assistance program. We have a down payment and closing cost assistance program. This is funded by federal home dollars or home investment partnership dollars. Home dollars are intended to create decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing. So that's one of the things that we use our home dollars for. As of next year, the down payment assistance will be up to $10,000 per individual household. The buyer themselves must contribute $1,000, so they have to have $1,000 of their own funds that they're putting into their house deal. But we will contribute up to $10,000 in down payment assistance. And that $10,000 is forgiven over a period of 10 years of home ownership. So each year that individual would own that house, $1,000 of that $10,000 just goes away. So it's a long-term grant. For our down payment and closing cost program, you have to be a first-time home buyer. First-time home buyer, by definition, just means you haven't owned a house in the last 3 years, so not first time ever. Home buyer education is required. We do send folks, for the most part, I'm drawing a blank. It's an outside agency that does our home ownership program for us that we contribute and support. I'll think of it in a minute. Yes, thank you, NeighborWorks. They're out of Beloit. I think they're doing most of their homebuyer education online right now. We don't have a schedule like we would in the past. Minimum credit score of 620 in order to qualify for that program. They have to go out and get their own mortgage. so they have to qualify for their own mortgage. That's not something that we do for folks. And then that mortgage must be a fixed rate. We want to make sure that there's not predatory lending on any program that we're going to be affiliated with. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. There we go. And then also with these homes, they must also meet housing quality standards. Housing quality standards are pretty much basic, decent, safe, and sanitary standards. And so they must meet those. If they can't meet them, initially we do have a couple of programs where we can help assist with making those decent, safe, and sanitary. We also have a homeowner rehabilitation program. This is something that we have had for a very long time. We've revamped it a lot of times in order to really fully utilize the program. So right now, we can provide up to $50,000 based on the equity that someone would have in their home. They must be owner-occupied houses in the city of Janesville. Households must be at or below 80% of CMI. So just to give you reference on that, 80% for a 4-person household is $58,400. So much higher income level than some of our other programs. Again, a minimum credit score of 620. And then all property taxes, insurance, and utility bills have to be current. That $50,000 in that program is deferred until sale. So if we invest $50,000 into that house, it's deferred until the time such that the property owner would sell the property. There are no payments due, no interest on the loan, and we don't get anything back until they sell the property. Specifically in census tracts 1, 3, 4, and 10, which I should have put a map on here and I didn't. 1 is downtown. 3 is going to be the 4th Ward. 4 is kind of the Look West area around the hospital, and then census tract 10 kind of sweeps down around the south side of town. In those census tracts, half of that investment that we would make in the house is forgiven over a period of 10 years. So if we invest $50,000 into somebody's home for, say, roof and siding, $25,000 of that in those specific census tracts goes away after 10 years if the individual continues to own or occupy the unit. Like I said, no payments, no interest. The one drawback is right now we're on a waiting list. We do have all of our projects filled for this year, but we would anticipate that we should have some available for next year. What we're currently seeing is we are finding a significant challenge with finding contractors who are able to do the work. We have had clients who will call 15 or 20 contractors and maybe one will show up. One of the requirements of HUD is that we do competitive bidding for all of our projects, so we need to have multiple bids, and it's just become a challenge, and it's quite time consuming, quite frankly. The other program that we have in our office is the LEAD grant program. So the LEAD grant program is a program that's funded by the state of Wisconsin and administered by the city of Janesville. We entered last year, maybe 2 years ago. Last year, I think, was our first grant cycle with them, and we just entered into another grant cycle with them to assist with those owner-occupied units in the city of Janesville that have lead-based paint. Typically, those houses are going to be built prior to 1978. Anyone who's taken a child to the doctor in the last, 20 years, and they ask, is your house built in 1978 or earlier? This is why, because they're concerned about that lead paint issue. For this program, there needs to be a child under 19 in the home or a pregnant individual staying there. Similar to the other one, we need to make sure that the property taxes are current. Insurance is current, and the utility bill is current. This program is up to $25,000 to assist with lead. If anyone has ever had lead work done on their house, they will understand it is very expensive to remove lead from a house, very expensive. So with this program, people have to be below 301% of federal poverty level. That's a little bit higher than our normal thresholds, but it allows for us to take lead out of houses, even if folks aren't extremely low income, because it's just such an expense. And again, because this is federal dollars, or I'm sorry, state dollars, it is forgiven at project completion. So when we walk away from the house, $25,000 loan that's on the house just goes away. The goal is to make houses safe and lead-free, and not to recoup those funds. So then affordable housing development is one of the things that we do in our office, and primarily one of the things that I do specifically, and that's affordable housing development. So we do single family, we do multi-family. So our single family development that we do here in town, we've had a long-term relationship with an agency called Wisconsin Partnership for Housing Development, or WPHD. They're headquartered out of Madison, but we have been working with them for 11 or 12 years now. They have rehabilitated 17 homes, most of them within our central city. They do have one current project. That current project came back to us as a tax foreclosure. It is a slab-on-grade construction, so it doesn't have a basement or no second story. So what we're asking them to do with that house specifically is to make it a fully accessible unit. So full roll-in shower, zero-grade entry, so it will become a fully accessible unit. That one will be transferred to them sometime this week, I believe. We're ready to transfer that to them. Once they rehabilitate these homes, they sell them to low-income populations. So they fulfill that affordable housing niche as well. They have constructed 8 new homes. We're closing on the last one that they constructed. They sold it prior to even having the finished siding on. That's how badly we need affordable housing in our community. We currently are transferring 2 more lots to them, and they will do very similar construction. If I go back to that slide, that's one of their houses there that they constructed. That one is down in the 4th Ward neighborhood. They've also developed 10 rental units here in town. So they developed the units. Some of them came back to us on tax foreclosure, and it made sense to transfer those properties to Wisconsin Partnership. They currently still own, operate, and rent those units, and they're managed by the partnership. They work well with our rental assistance program because we're able to determine that those units are affordable and remain affordable. And I just had a gal today come in and sign a lease for a property that she's moving into that's owned by the partnership. So those properties, so the 17 plus the 8 plus the 10, has increased our tax valuation in the city of Janesville by $1.9 million. Most of these properties came to us on tax foreclosure that we've transferred to them. Some of them were just vacant lots that we received. But $1.9 million in some affordable housing is nothing to scoff at, that is for sure. We're excited when they do a project. It's nice housing. It's affordable. We know that it's going to be affordable. We partner it with our down payment assistance. And so we know that those homeowners are not going to have to replace a furnace next week, which we all know can be an expense that none of us are prepared for. Like I said, the houses are sold to income-eligible households, so they're at or below that 80% of CMI. Again, 4-person household, and I should commit this to memory, but I don't, is 58.4. Homes, they must remain owner-occupied for a period of 5 years. The reason for that is we don't want someone to get into these houses because, quite frankly, it is possible that the cost of construction is higher than the sales price. And the cost, the sales price for the houses may be very well under what we would consider market value for houses now, just because of how weird our market is in this community and how expensive everything is. So we may have to sell these properties for under value. but the investment in the community is much greater than just that individual sale. That's why we ask the homeowners to remain in the property for 5 years. We tie that down payment assistance to it, so it kind of gives them an incentive. If they stay in it, then that down payment goes away over that period of 5 years. So multifamily development, and I think this is probably one of the more exciting ones that we've done, just because it's such a visual. We recently have decided that we would start to pursue multifamily development. We've not done that in the past. River Flats, so over right next to the Janesville Police Department, is our first affordable housing development in the city of Janesville for at least 20 years. The last one in my recollection is the Marshall Apartments, and those are outside of their period of affordability, which means that's more than 20 years since we assisted those. So River Flats is 92 units, consisting of 2 and 3 bedrooms. The income level for the building, the average needs to be 60% or less of CMI. With River Flats, I'll just go back to that real quick. There was, it's a challenge to build a multifamily that's going to be affordable. There was 13 different funding sources in that project. The city supported it with tax increment finance, with home investment partnership, and with community development block grant dollars. And then on the back end of it, we have 36 clients, I believe, from our rental assistance program that are now living there. So we'd love to do another large-scale affordable housing. To put 92 families in our community into affordable housing is needed. For our 2022, and this has not been approved by council yet, but this is the proposal, so our 2022 budget allows or sets aside $375,000 as an incentive in home funds for the next developer that wants to come and do a large-scale project. We also set aside about $100,000 in CDBG funds. The reason we just set less in CDBG funds is that CDBG is just a little bit more difficult to use for new construction. So we have about $500,000 right now waiting for the next project. I have had conversations with probably maybe 6 developers who are looking to do affordable housing. They just need to find the right time, space. Most of them apply for WIDA funds, and so that grant cycle is coming due soon. So hopefully we see one of those projects come this way, because we can certainly use it in town. Like I said, we don't own or operate any of our own housing, so we have to support all of the other developers that are going to do that. So hopefully we see something in the near future. There are independently owned and operated subsidized apartments, and River Flats is a little bit different. It's a income-based, but we do have subsidized units here in town that we always steer people to. But I will tell you, they have waiting lists just as long as we do for our Section 8 program.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, May. Go ahead.
That housing that was built where the Little League Park,
Diamond Ridge.
yeah, is that part of that subsidized housing?
It is not. They consider themselves to be market rate. I wouldn't call them market rate by HUD's definition of market rate. They're more of a mid-level and a little bit higher than what we would consider market rate. Yep. So that is all that I have in slides, but I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. I also have my card here if you want to email me. I can talk about affordable housing all day long. So go ahead.
So I have some questions from people who could not be here
Sure.
tonight, but they will be watching on JATV later.
Sure.
So if I have a list, I'm sorry. But one is, what is the current vacancy rate for Janesville?
It's really hard to get at, and we don't have like a specific study on that.
Kelly, could I get you to repeat the question just so
sure,
everybody's heard it?
So the vacancy rate, the question was, what's the vacancy rate in the city of Janesville right now? We don't have 100% accurate details on that because it's hard to know what's for rent and what's not for rent. Right now, landlords don't have to advertise. It's word of mouth. You don't find it on Craigslist or in the paper or anything like that like you used to back in the day. But what we do estimate, it's between 1% and 2% is our vacancy rate. What is considered healthy for a community is between 8 and 10. So we're failing there.
Okay, so so you gave the HUD's version of in a government agency looking at the pie in the sky ideal of what a market rate apartment is in Janesville. What are apartments really going for?
So the question is, what are apartments really going for a rent in the city of Janesville? All over the board, quite frankly.
Okay.
What I could find in an apartment for $500 probably 4 years ago, I can't find it for under $1,000 right now. So it's really, really challenging to find anything that's greater than a 1-bedroom that's under $1,000. And I've seen them. I mean, we have some really nice brand new units that are very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and as I know, I have seen here working in my job at the library, and I'm sure other people in this room have seen, there's a lot of programs out there, and there's a lot of people that need help, and so the patchwork of programs, do you have, successes are wonderful. How do you have any idea of how much more you would need to reach deeper into the housing need here in Janesville?
So the question is, how much more would we need in order to solve the problem? Paraphrasing for you.
Yes.
I don't know that I have the answer to that. I think it's partnerships. It's working together with developers who are going to do that. We just have a housing shortage, plain and simple. And so when we start, obviously my passion is for lower income or affordable housing. But when we started seeing some of these really high rent upscale apartments come to town, I got the question, well, doesn't that frustrate you? No, it doesn't. I will take any housing, because what happens is then those folks who are in the top of the line apartments now are going to move into that, and then these people are going to move here, and it just opens up housing, period. We've built over 500 units in the last about year and a half. They're full. All of them are full. So I'd like to see several new developments come into town.
Okay.
What that's going to cost, I don't know.
Well, getting away from the money, you say that right now we guesstimate have a vacancy rate of 1 to 2%.
Mm-hmm.
8% is ideal. Has anyone run the numbers of how many more units we would need?
No, I haven't done that, and I am not a math major, so that's not going to happen in my brain right this second. But I think what happens is when we build additional housing in town, we also draw from other communities who would rather be in Janesville than be, in Madison, where it's very expensive, or potentially Rockford. We have an ideal community, and it's, for location, for amenities. People want to live here, so we need to build that housing to let them live here. Any other questions for me, Kara?
Thank you for coming, by the way.
Sure.
I have two unrelated two questions not related to each other. So one is it typical among cities like of our size to not have their own housing? So you said that a couple times in your presentation.
Mhm.
You know, the city doesn't provide its own subsidized housing.
Right.
Is that typical, or is Janesville different?
I don't know that we're different necessarily, that we don't have our own public housing. Public housing it's a little bit different from a federal funding standpoint, and we've just never had it. Beloit does have some in Beloit, but it's a capacity that we just don't have right now from a city standpoint. Not to get into the depths of Section 8, but the administrative portion of Section 8, the federal government knows that they don't pay us enough to actually administer the program, and so we have to make do with, I think it's 78% of what they know the program costs. So in order to do something like public housing, I don't know how we would do it with our current funding situation. But it's not uncommon. I mean, there's a lot of public housing agencies or public housing authorities that don't have their own housing.
Thank you. And then, so in your experience, so what are still some of the barriers? So there are all these programs and there are different eligibilities for the different programs, and I don't know how you keep them all straight, but where are you still seeing applicants falling short? Like in their eligibility, what are still the barriers, or what are the barriers that you see over and over again?
So the barriers that I see to safe and affordable housing, number one, again, is just the quantity. We just don't have enough units. I mean, I oftentimes will have a client who relinquishes a Section 8 voucher because they can't find somewhere to live. That's the worst day ever, when we know we can help somebody and we can't find a place for them. I can tell you one of the helpful things that we have seen over the last few years is a housing navigator who is funded by United Way, works at ECHO. She's amazing with connecting landlords and people. If I could have 10 of her to connect an individual who's looking for housing with someone who is willing to give someone a chance, I would be all over that, because literally I had a gal this morning who signed her lease who was living at Lions Beach in a pavilion with her 10-year-old child. So we connected her with the housing navigator at ECHO that's funded by the United Way, and we got her into an apartment on October 1. She finally signed her lease today, and her daughter are in a home tonight. Those connections with having someone take a client out to speak with a landlord, so it's not just a rent check, it's an actual person, is so valuable to us. The other things that we see that are challenges is individuals who have evictions on their record. Anyone right now, landlords have their pick. And if they don't want to take someone who has had an eviction in the last 5 years, 10 years, we all can find it on CCAP when an eviction's been filed, they just don't do it. So even if someone has had an eviction and it was dismissed, that still shows up on their CCAP, and we see that a lot where landlords just won't take them. So there, we are working on some eviction assistance with folks to hopefully try and curtail some of that eviction. Obviously, we know that there was a moratorium on evictions for a very long time, which has now been lifted. There's still a significant amount of money out there for anyone who needs eviction assistance. When they call our office, we immediately send them to Community Action. They're the individuals who are working with all of those dollars to help with back rent. So it's out there. They just got to make that connection. if anyone calls us, I would like to say that our staff is really well connected with our community and with who's got funds and who can help. And, if we can't help, we'll certainly find who can. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead. Oh, I forgot you need the microphone. Sure, stop.
Do you find that landlords are hesitant to take advantage of rental assistance, Section 8?
I do. I think it's gotten a bad reputation over the years. That Section 8 has gotten a bad reputation from landlords over the years. I don't know that I understand that fully. There are good tenants, there are bad tenants in every income category. And the one thing that I have told landlords over the past year and a half when there was a moratorium, guess whose check didn't stop? That was ours. So they always received our payment. If our clients lost their job, they come in, we adjust that, our rent payment so that they're paying, if they're making nothing, their minimum that they have to pay out of pocket is $40. The city picks up the rest of that. If we're picking up the rest of that, that landlord's getting paid. Some of them are fearful of our inspection process. Our inspection process is not difficult. It is decent, safe, and sanitary, and the rental assistance inspection process is no different than our city ordinances that all landlords have to adhere to. There are nuances of difference, but essentially they're the same. So I don't know if a landlord has a problem with one of our clients, if they want to call us, we can have that conversation with the client, because most folks, once they've gotten on our program after a 2 or 3 year wait, they don't want to lose that voucher. So if we can have that conversation and change some behaviors, we certainly will be a partner with the landlord to do that.
Is there adequate Section 8 funding for the needs that our city has?
No, I mean, the easy answer to that is no, and there never will be. The biggest challenge, though, that we have right now is I can't utilize all of our vouchers that we have available because I can't find housing for people. So I could, issue 30 vouchers today. I have the funding to do it. Could those 30 people go out and find somewhere to live today? Nope. Not with, what we consider affordable according to HUD. They have to stay under that or close to that fair market rent value, and it's just not something that we have here in town right now. It's hard. So we did have a couple new landlords come on last week, I believe. We have a couple old trusty landlords that have multiple units that we, every time they have a unit, we can fill it for them. That's the other thing. You never have to worry about it. If you're going to work with our program, I can fill it for you tomorrow. And there is, I brought the list of the Pledge of Family Responsibility, which I don't know that all tenants have in leases, but this is what they have to adhere to with us. This is a 20 additional rules that they have to abide by in order to stay on our program. So I don't know where that negative impression of the rental assistance program comes from. We've done our best to try and negate it for sure. When I first became the housing director, we did have a series of terminations. We terminate from our program. So if you don't follow the rules, you get terminated. If you don't want to, if you have income that you don't report, if you have someone live in your house, if you have a violent crime incident, if you have a drug or alcohol addiction issue that you don't take care of, if you do take care of it, I have the ability to waive that, but we'll terminate you from the program. So I think there's a lot of misinformation about our rental assistance program. And you go back to the number of our clients that are elderly, that are disabled, that are, families with children. It's not, again, it's not that people don't want to pay their rent, they don't want to work. They are working, or they're elderly, or they're disabled, and they need help. And that's what we do. Another one?
You mentioned something about being unable to find contractors. Is that related to the pandemic or supply chain issues?
So the reason that the question is, do we have, what's the reason for our lack of contractors that we're having for our programs? I think there's multiple levels of that. Oftentimes the work that we're doing is in pre-78 houses. In houses that are pre-78, we have to assume lead in order to be a contractor or a primary contractor in a house pre-78 that the federal government is going to fund the project. You have to be lead certified. There's a lot of contractors who don't want to go down that road and get lead certified. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's important work. There's that. There's the pandemic, absolutely. For quite some time, we didn't even do our program because we couldn't. The rule was you could have one contractor on site outdoors, I think, at one point, and we can't have, a siding company go with one guy. It's not going to work, or a roofing company. So that was part of it, and then just the sheer cost of materials. If you've been to, it's a little bit better right now, but if you were at the lumber yard 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I mean, a $6 sheet of plywood was like $68. Yeah, it was crazy. And so when contractors have to sometimes front that money, they don't necessarily with us, we'll pay them right away for any materials, but if they're doing other work and they have to front that money for the materials, they can't make ends meet doing that. And then nobody wants to work on their house if it's going to cost you $68 for a sheet of drywall or a sheet of plywood. So there's just a lot of reasons for why. But I think mostly it's that lead piece, and then it's just a lot of contractors have left the market, if you will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything?
So Kelly, I know that during the recession for that 10-year period, we didn't have any new single-family homes being built, but we've had quite a few in the last, say, 3 to 5 years, right? So has that helped at all, or don't you see that as impacting affordable housing either?
I don't know that I see that it's doing enough. There's been a lot of, we've done some affordable housing, but that's a drop in the bucket. Not for those families, obviously. That's very important for those families. But yeah, we've done some subdivisions, but I don't. And this is nationwide. Is the real estate market has just gone through the roof. Houses that I could pick up 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, for $60,000 that we could pick up from the city, are now like close to $200,000. We're getting to a point where we can't use some of our federal funds because the houses that we would assist with down payment assistance are above the threshold for their purchase price. So it's just, one thing I did see as I was driving around this week is I'm seeing a lot more for sale signs up in houses. I don't know what that's going to do. But the experts that I have listened to don't think that our markets, the price on housing is going to drop significantly. So I'd like to be of better news, but I just don't think it's going to happen, at least not in the near future. The flip side of that is we could be back to 2008 where we had that huge recession and everything dropped out of the market and we had foreclosures on every street corner. I'd like to find a happy medium in there. That would be nice. Anybody else? I will be around if anyone has questions. I also brought cards, and I also did bring some fair housing brochures. Anytime we can promote fair housing in our office, we certainly do that. So thank you all for coming, and I will be around.